So, with more than two-thirds of England about to be in Tier 3, does it mean the government's tiered system of restrictions isn't working? Joining me is the Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter, Dr. Bharat Pankhania. Dr. Pankhania, thank you very much for being with us. So, Tier 2, we were told, was supposed to keep the virus at bay, where Tier 3 was supposed to be bringing the rates down. Given where we are today, the lack of movement, significant movement down for areas from Tier 3, the large numbers going up to Tier 2, does that suggest to us that it just isn't working?
Of course it does, and it's a clear indication of failure. And we are finding it reluctant to admit that our control systems are failing. So we continue to, unfortunately, have lockdowns and then move from 2 to 3 and 3 to 2 and so on. What would be better is to make it absolutely clear that human-to-human activity equals spread of infection. I heard other contributors talking about we are devastated that we are in Tier 3 or managed to stay in Tier 3 when we want to go to 2. My answer is, look, if you carry on with cases going up, you will never get out of this mess. It is better to have a controlled shutdown and over the Christmas period, and then hopefully see what happens in January.
So by that, you mean another lockdown over Christmas, effectively?
Well, this is a very good point. So what I would like to consider, and it would take a brave politician to consider it, but it's a good thing to consider at least. The country naturally comes to a halt around Christmas time, and it would be a smart move to say, we are going to prolong the shutdown over the Christmas period so that case numbers come down and stay down because of the general shutdown across the country, because it's a holiday period extended. And then at the same time, build up the armamentum of immunizing as many as possible, as quickly as possible. And one more thing, I hope the easier to give vaccine from the AstraZeneca Oxford group will come online. And that should make a big difference because we can immunize using that vaccine a lot faster.
Yeah, and the speed of vaccination is really important, isn't it? We got those numbers out yesterday, and it's difficult to know how accurate a picture they're giving us of exactly how many people have been vaccinated, but we're told 137,000. The pace needs to be picked up, doesn't it, if we're to get enough people vaccinated by the spring, as we were told by the government?
So the pace, unfortunately, Sarah, will never be picked up with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine because it is difficult to give. It takes time. I estimate, having spoken to many of my GP friends and colleagues, is it takes 20 minutes per person to be immunized. That's a long time. What we want is another vaccine to be licensed. And I think the contender would be AstraZeneca Oxford Group 1. And when that happens, we can speed things up. Until that happens, it is not possible to speed it up. And because it's not possible to speed it up, we've got to have alternative measures, which is concerted restrictions on human activity.
Does that mean that the government should have been much tougher over Christmas then and cancelled any household mixing?
Absolutely, Sarah, and it disappoints doctors like myself immensely because as a public health issue, people get infected, people end up in ITU, and people die. And our Prime Minister needs to spell it out. Instead of saying, have a short Christmas, have a one-day Christmas, whatever form of words he used, the form of words I would really like our leaders to use is, getting together with people is a dangerous activity. Don't do it. Good times are around in 2021. I'm sorry to say this, but we've got to have a low pre-Christmas.
As you yourself, though, said, it would be a brave politician who called for that. What about the news we've had in the last half hour or so, confirming that the return of secondary schools is to be staggered in the new year? Is that a sensible decision?
Very sensible. And when I'm not talking to you, Sarah, I'm often advising local authorities. And this was the advice I have been giving last week and as early as this morning, which was, despite what the Department for Education wishes to say and do to us, at least let us write to our headmasters and tell them we would allow you, or we would encourage you, or we would support you to have a staggered reopening of schools after Christmas. Therefore, I'm very pleased to hear in the afternoon today that exactly what we have been saying has now been enabled by central government.
We've got a bit more information on that, which may be of interest to you. Dr. Bharat Pankhania, thank you very much. Some more details coming to us from the Department of Education now about that return for secondary schools next year. Vocational exams scheduled for the week of the 4th of January will go ahead as planned. Secondary schools and colleges will operate a staggered return, offering all non-exam year groups full-time remote education as close as possible to that which students would get in class during the first week of term, with face-to-face education for all starting on the 11th of January.